Welcome to MS Excel Basic Learning lesson number 13. In this lesson we are going to learn subtotal, outline and grouping of the data. Let's begin from the function subtotal. Before going to the definition syntax of subtotal, I'm going to apply the subtotal on the data that has been given. Subtotal, and there are a number of function number that I need to include in the subtotal. Subtotal, from the name it appears that it is a function to make the summation of a data, but it is not only the summation, but there are a number of functions that can be applied with the help of subtotal. From the name, that subtotal, we should not be confused that it can only done the subtotal. It can done average, count, minimum, maximum, product, standard deviation, and too many other functions that can be applied with the help of subtotal. So let's select the subtotal for the sum, the code number 9, this comma, then we need to apply the range. For 3 cells, the subtotal will be 4500. Keep in mind that this function number 9 has been applied for the sum, and while applying the function number 9, it includes the hidden values. If we want to exclude hidden values, we need to set function number as 109. Let's edit this one as 109. So that means whenever a row is hidden, Alt O or H. So hidden row, in this sequence the row number 3 has been hidden, so whereas the remaining row, the sales figure for 1000 and sales figure 300 has been added up. And in order to unhide the row, we can see that the summation of all unhided or the displayed figure can be seen. Let's change the color of the subtotal that we have made. We can turn it as the blue, and the same can be copied for the next salesperson. Range is same, however we need to change the name from Jones, it is James, and then the subtotal can be copied for the next salesperson. Range is same, however we need to change the name only. So these are the subtotal that we have applied on the sales figure made by 3 different sales assistants. Where the syntax is a concern, subtotal, and after subtotal we need to add the function number. In this case we have added 9 to sum up these 3 figures, and after comma we need to give the range, reference number 1, 2, 3 and so on, that we need to sum up. While applying the function, whatever has been written in the parenthesis is called argument. So every function contains argument, and we need to define what argument we are going to pass on to a function to get our result. Let's make the grand total of this figure, and after making the grand total you will find something very interesting while applying subtotal. Subtotal number 9 mean we want to make the summation of this figure. If we apply the subtotal on this figure, so there are a number of figures including subtotal. So after applying, you can see that 5000, 6000 and 4000, altogether 16,650, and we have received grand total while applying subtotal as 16,650. On the other hand, if we apply a normal sum function, we can see that for the same range while applying sum, the amount will be doubled. In this way, we have learned that subtotal is a clever function that can identify subtotal from the list and exclude from the summation. We are now in a position to apply the subtotal command from the menu. Let's move on to our pre-selected hypothetical example for this purpose. This is a list of the customer. We are going to sell different products, different sizes and different packing, and there are as many as 161 rows in this data. So when we go to the last row, we can see that the top labels disappeared from our view. In order to freeze it, we need to click view and the freeze spans. So you can see a solid line just below the row that we have frozen. In this way, the top labels of the database has been frozen and we can move down to the number we require. Before applying the freeze span, the position of the cell is very important. Before applying the freeze span, we placed our cell in A2. So A2 means just above this cell all of the rows were frozen, and at the same time the column at the left side of this cell are frozen as well. Before applying the subtotal command, we have arranged all of our data in sorted manner. This column B contains a customer name. There are two customer, cost cutter, and the second customer is Superstore Limited. So these two names are in sorted order C and S. Next type is sorted in a way that we have defined the type of the product like A type, B type, C type, and D type. 4 type of the products type has been defined. Next one, the product name are also sorted alphabetically. Aviant, Blue Eye, C for Coke, P for Pepsi, and so on. The next one is the size of product. This is sorted as well. Column F, packing is sorted at the same time. A packing of 10, packing 12, 15, and so on. So these columns has been purposely designed in a way that we can apply the subtotal on multiple columns, but before application we have sorted each and every column. The reason of the sorting is that subtotal can be applied to the columns that are pre-sorted. Before the application of the command subtotal, we need to select the whole range including column labels. Column labels must be included. For the subtotal purpose, click on the data. Under data we can see subtotal. For subtotal, the first one that we want to apply the subtotal is on customers, and the column that we need to get the subtotal figures for gross, VAT, and net. So there is an option that replace the current subtotal and summary below. So we need the summary, but we don't want the replacement of the subtotal. 3 outlines has been generated on the left side of the table, and we can see a subtotal for the Superstore and the subtotal for the cost cutter. The two customers subtotal has been generated, and there is another subtotal for the grand total as well has been generated at the same time. We can apply the subtotal in the same way on rest of the columns. After making the selection, subtotal can be applied after customer. The next one is a type. We don't want to replace it while making the selection of the replace current subtotal. the subtotal that has been generated for the superstore will disappear and it will be replaced with the subtotal of the type. So we want multiple levels of subtotal, so we don't want the replacement. And next one is product level. After product, we need to make a subtotal of size, no replacement. After size, the next level is packing. So we can observe that there are 8 number of outlines has been generated, and this is the maximum limit that an Excel can generate the subtotal. So maximum 8 levels of subtotal or 8 level of the outlines can be generated while using the subtotal command. These level can be expanded or collapsed by clicking on the level number. So outline number 1 contains the grand total, outline number 2 contains the subtotal for the date, number 3 contains the subtotal for the customers, number 4 contains the subtotal for the type of the products. There are 4 types of the products. And number 5 contains the subtotal for the products. Number 6 contains the subtotal of the sizes. So by clicking on the level we can expand. And the last one, the number 8, is the detailed database that on which we have applied the subtotal command. The same number of the functions that we have seen in subtotal function can be applied using the subtotal command. Sum, count and average can be applied through this command. Outline or grouping can be cleared by clicking on the arrow and the clear outlines. So outline will disappear from the subtotal that we have done, but the subtotal functions application will remain intact and there will be no change at all. Not only the outline, but we can remove the subtotal from our list as well, making our sheet back to the normal. After removal, there is no subtotal. So far we have applied the subtotal command on the data that was sorted, but there could be the situation where we don't have the sorted data, or there could be the possibility that we are unable to sort the data. So what should we do in this case? Let's move on to our next example, where we have arranged the addresses of some customers divided in a manner that we have allocated the sales manager to the region, and in that region there are some customers which have their postal addresses. In this example, there are sales manager David, Alex and Claire. These 3 sales manager has been allocated region. The first sales manager is a David, and David has been allocated to sales region. Alex has been allocated to sales region, and at the same time Claire has been allocated to sales region. So the name of these sales manager are not sorted. David D is on the top and Alex A the next one, and in the same way north and east are not sorted, and then their names and addresses are not sorted. They are given in the order that we want to analyze. Unsorted data can be analyzed with the help of subtotal functions, but before applying the subtotal function we should divide our data into groups. For example, the region is divided into the group Northwest region, East London region, Southwest region, Slough, West Wembley. So these are the region that has been divided. we have divided region, and at the same time we have divided the sales manager into two groups. These two groups can be further applied function. Let's move on to our Excel sheet where I have applied the functions. In order to count the number of customer in Northwest London region, we need to apply subtotal, and for this purpose we have to apply number 3, because number 3 is count A. Count A is used for alphabets or all kind of the data to count non-blank cells, whereas a count is a function that is normally used for figures only. Number 3 is being applied, and we have to count this range for number of customers. So there are 8 number of the customer in Northwest London, and at the same time we can copy the same function for the second region. Range need to be adjusted for second region, and now we have to find the number of the customers for this particular manager for second level of grouping. Subtotal number 3 comma the complete range for this particular sales manager. So there are 11, 8 plus 3, 11 number of the customer for David. Same practice can be done for other two sales manager and their respective areas. We are in a position to group the data, and after clicking on group, auto outline can be selected and to make the grouping and outline of the data. So number 1, there are total number of customers. For level 2, there are the managers, 3 managers, their count, the number of customers being managed by these 3 managers. Number 3 is the blue color show the number of customer present in a region, and whereas the brown color represent number of customer being managed by a particular manager. And number 4 is the complete detail of the data. So in this way we have applied the subtotal command or the functions on the data which is not given in the sorted manner. This data can be ungrouped, and in order to ungroup we need to click on the arrow besides ungroup, clear outline, and all of the outline will disappear. Not only the ungrouping, but we can also remove the subtotals that we have provided manually in our table. So after removal of subtotal, our table or database will be back to the norm.